As long as there is a human being, there was always a hope. And as long as there is a hope, there was always a dream. Everyone has a dream, I'm sure. You have a dream, he have a dream, I have a dream. See, but it's how do you define it, and how you go after this dream. See, that's very important. You need to have a strategy, you have to have a plan in order for you to have to go for your own dreams.
The American dream is to have a job that you enjoy and a family and to own a house and be able to practice the freedoms that you're promised here.
Well, my idea of American dream is having a good, successful career, having a wife, maybe 2 or 3 kids, maybe a little dog, and a nice big house in a suburban area.
My take on the American dream is to actually have a goal and to actually meet the goal. There's so many people that actually say that they fail or don't ever achieve, success in life. So I feel like that if you have something that you want, if you have a dream, go for it.
Can you define the American dream in, I guess, sociological terms?
Yeah, when we talk about the American dream in sociology, it's usually presented as an ideology. So the American dream ideology states that if you work hard enough, you can reasonably anticipate success. And in sociology classes, we also teach that ideology, or this pervasive belief system that's built into our institutions, is fundamentally flawed. From a sociological perspective, we would say that the American dream ideology itself has given us an understanding of why inequality exists, particularly class inequality. So we use that ideology to understand, for example, why wealth exists and why poverty exists and why certain people are in those groups. So we use the ideology to explain stratification.
My name is Abdul, and I'm born in Kuwait. I went to school, or to kindergarten in Kuwait, then to school, then to high school. After that, I went to study in London. I did British government and politics, and I did economy and sociology. After that, I returned to Kuwait. Then I chose or decided that I want to migrate to Canada at that time. Okay, and I went through all the immigration process and everything. Then I went back to Kuwait to work with my father. I was actually helping my father in his business. He owned his own business, you see, and that's how he raised us, me and my brothers, to own our own business and to always be free. I was working with my father. Then all of a sudden, something happened shocking for all of us, was the invasion of Kuwait. When Saddam Hussein, August 2nd, 1990, chose to invade Kuwait, and that was like an appalling, devastating things happened to us, because you are like, you don't know you're dreaming or is that fact or reality. Like August 1st, you sleep, you wake up in the morning, you see the Iraqi army wandering around in the country, and in Kuwait, the civilian, they're peaceful people. They never saw someone with really, honestly, with a machine gun or someone on a tank. You only see that in the movies or in Hollywood, you see. And in a small country like Kuwait, it was really something really terrible.
It's the reference group, right? If you're born in the United States and you hear this and you're living in poverty, you hear that you work hard enough, you can succeed, etc. Your only frame of reference is what's going on in the United States. So you living in deprivation, people at the lowest of the low are comparing themselves to themselves, and they're looking at wealth at the very top. Immigrants are usually coming from conditions far worse than the impoverished conditions of this country. So they are by definition moving up by standards of their place of origin. But by American standards, they're still not doing well.
It could be positive, it could be negative. But you born poor, it's no excuse. You see, I can tell you from so many experiences I saw in the Middle East that people who born poor, end up millionaires, if not billionaires, my friend. Or they were like in refugee camp and end up in the United States with high degrees, professors in universities, or doctors, or engineering. I can tell you that one of the top engineering in Britain, he's Iraqi. He escaped the persecution from Iraq, my friend. You see, I can tell you that top doctors in Kuwait, they were Iraqis who ran away from the regime in Iraq. So to come and to put label on yourself or to use excuse, it's no excuse, to tell you the truth, you see. Everyone should have a dream, as I said before, and everyone should have an ambitious, because what motivates us, to my point of view, is ambitious. That motivates us to go for better things in life.
American dream to me is showcasing your talents. I mean, you can be multi-talented at different things. Like, I know, just take me, for instance. I told you, like, I mean, I like to entertain people. So if it takes, like, singing, dancing, playing football, doing some type of business, like writing a script, movie, I mean, you name it, I tried, as long as, you know what I'm saying, it's something I'm passionate in, something I believe in, and I'm put all my, you know, effort into.
If there is a common goal that Americans are still trying to pursue or have come up with it, like this, a new version of the American dream today, I mean, how would you define it? Do you think
money at any cost? And this is something that's really, I believe, setting this time in our country's history apart from previous times, in previous decades. The notion that people do not matter, that it is profit over people. We see it in terms of the legislation. We see it in terms of the gross marriage between politics and economics. We see it in terms of the weakening of unions and taking power away from people to fight for their rights as workers. We see it in terms of this congressional debate over how much people are worth. And you can see this, you know, there's a huge debate in Congress about whether or not we should sign legislation that guarantees women equal pay for equal work. I mean, when you see those kind of fights going on, you see people profiting through private prisons of people who are incarcerated. You see the push to privatize education. All of those efforts are really about keeping people at the bottom and letting people at the top profit from their despair and their impoverished conditions.
The good things about owning your own business is that you're going to have time to think about other things. You're not going to be inclined with 9 to 5 job, you see, and you're going to be your own boss. As you see, I'm my own boss. From there, you can expand, and that's what me and my brother were trying to do. See, we have a location here, we have location in health science, and we have other things we do other than restaurant. See, so that's and also if we saw any good opportunity, any good idea, we will go for it.
I think that, you know, the American dream isn't actually one specific dream. I think it changes for each of us. So if what you want is to make a lot of money, America allows you to make that money. But if what you really want is to be equal or have equality, whether, you know, you're gay, lesbian, or, you know, you're a minority, it allows certain places where you can actually be equal and be treated as equal in the community.
To be successful in the United States, I would argue, requires 4 types of capital. Financial capital, which is pretty self-explanatory, money, wealth. Human capital, which are formal skills that you get through education, job training, and that's supposed to make you marketable. Cultural capital, which are informal, the informal knowledge you have about aspects of culture that are valued. And social capital, the benefits you get from people you know. Unfortunately, many of those are closed off to people who are born with disadvantage. There are people living in poverty who work hard every day, who work far harder than I could ever imagine working. And yet I'm higher in the stratification system simply because I've had the right opportunities, I developed the right skills, I've been given a chance and I learned a certain trade. But it doesn't mean that they're not working as hard as I'm working. You always have to remember that the immigrant idea of the American dream is going to have a different reference point than people who are natural-born citizens.
The American dreams, or the dreams of the people who came from Ireland or Italy at that time, their dreams different than us. You see, every stage, every level is different from that generation next to it.
I was talking to a friend, and he was saying how excited he was to come to America. I was like, oh yeah, so you like all the food and the culture and everything? He's like, sure. And I'm like, okay, now what do you think about it? Now that we just like destroyed the veil of what America looks like to everyone in other countries. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of
sucky.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
It's just
not like how it used to be coming here to be free. Now
exactly.
It's like, now it's like
more restrictions?
Thank you. Like, we have more restrictions than usual.
I wouldn't say necessarily that there's something special about America that would give us this ideology. I think that in a place like the United States, where inequality is extremely extensive, and that the extensiveness of that inequality violates our very principles, we have to come up with a way to explain it and justify it, and in many ways kind of take away our guilt for the fact that such poverty exists. So the American dream ideology really comes from a necessity to explain poverty and inequality and to justify it.
The American dream is you busting your ass and not getting any fucking credit for it.
Personally, for me, the American dream, I feel like what most people want to do is they want to have it all, and I feel like that's what it's become. You know, it used to be just having enough, just having a wife and a few kids and a picket fence with a house, but now it's the pursuit of more. Now that we know that there's more out there, we want to go and get it, and I feel like that's what the American dream has truly become.
The way the world is right now, I mean, it's kind of hard to get by without putting yourself in debt at some point, whether it's like student loans or car loans or house loans. And I think the American dream right now is to just get by without putting yourself in ridiculous amounts of debt. And I think that's pretty much what most people would consider successful at this point.
I think that, especially today, it is a particularly dangerous ideology. When we believe that hard work guarantees success, we psychologically are damaged when we don't succeed. And so we blame ourselves and our presumed lack of effort or ability. But we live in a society that is structured in such a way that there will always be losers. Regardless of how hard people work, people will lose out. Our brand of capitalism requires that. And we're told if we fail in the system that we didn't work hard enough. But we also have to remember that the idea of hard work is a social construct.
What makes somebody different who is able to do these things and get out of being poor? What makes them different from somebody who just accepts the decision?
Most to my knowledge and to my understanding, determination. Life, it's gonna be up and down, and maybe you're gonna see a lot of down before you're gonna see a lot of up. So don't ever give up. All it takes just one success, and the ladder will be up.
Because I think it's important not only to present and talk about research, I think it's also important to encourage an open dialogue about what's faulty about the American dream ideology.
I guess nowadays when you think about it, there kind of technically is no American dream anymore. You know, how society's been going these days, it's just gonna get worse.
I've been teaching for 7 years at the college level, and every semester I ask my students how many have heard that if you work hard you can succeed, and then I ask how many believe it, and most students continue to raise their hand. And when I show them all the statistics and we go through the logic of why this can't work and the structural constraints and all of these things, all of a sudden they have this critical perspective and they realize that what they've been told isn't necessarily true. And like I was saying before, I think that that's an important realization, not only so that we understand our own position in life and how we got to where we are, and that it's not always just our fault, but also understanding the system means that potentially we can all work to change it.
I just think it's sad because, like you said, like we give them this image, and when they come here, they see something completely different. It's like a portrait, yeah. And as soon as you open that curtain into seeing the real action or play, you're like, oh shit, this is horrible.
If we're ignorant about the way the system works, then we're never going to change it. But if we're more intelligent, we're more knowledgeable about what's actually happening, and it affects us and it bothers us, and we want something more for this country, then hopefully this is a motivation and grounds to stand on to make this a stronger country. I mean, I think that's our real goal. I think that is what makes us American. If we want to talk about American exceptionalism, there's a whole bunch of ego, and there's a whole bunch of wanting to make us even stronger. And if we want to make us stronger, we have to understand how things work.
Find it, as I told you, everyone, to my point of view, everyone has their own definition. Everyone has their own way of looking at it. It's like if you have a beautiful pictures on the wall, how are you going to define it, my friend? You're going to have point of view. I'm sure I'm going to have point of view. He's going to have point of view. This is exactly what's American dream. The other things, don't forget, as I told you before, we're dealing with a human being. You cannot put human being on a lab. You cannot put 1 + 1 = 2, because we're doing with social people. We're doing with society. You see, society does not have really a precise definition as like what we have in math or physics or chemistry. When we deal with society or we deal with human being and the way how their thoughts are limited. You see, and that can be a combination of American dreams as well. Sometimes you should say, thank you God, you lead me to come to the United States, because if I stay in the Middle East, maybe I will not achieve what I wanted to achieve. I feel I'm successful, but I have more dreams, I have more ambitions to achieve, to tell you the truth. I wanna make a difference living in the United States. That's very important to me. Difference for you young people, difference in my society, in my culture. You see,